But a true zone of genius business, though, is like really getting an idea of what you're really, really good at and building systems and people around all the other parts. When that happens, you basically don't work another day in your life because you do what you love. You show up, you do the work. Like like Dustin's incredibly good at facilitating amazing conversations. Once his zone of genius business is built, he's just going to show up, have these calls, and then go home.
You have clarity on what you do and who you're serving. It's the mechanism by which you will scale to 7 figures and beyond that you're like, not sure yet. And that's awesome. If you would have asked me 6 months ago, I definitely couldn't have answered that question. And now I have an answer. It might change though in the next 6 months, and that's the beauty of entrepreneurship and the journey that we're all on. So this was fascinating. Really enjoyed hearing your history and unpacking Kolbe and talking about the unique ability that you have and how you found the right partner to express that and how you've helped me and can help others. So what I'd love to kind of close out the episode is to let you teach us. And one of the things we've talked about in the work you did with me and in our mastermind is this idea of building with purpose toward the type of business you want. And I believe you have basically 4 types you're going to go over, kind of boil it down for us so that people listening can think, which of these do I think at this point I actually want to build? Because that's going to have a huge impact on what you do today, tomorrow, and over the next 3 to 5 years as you're building towards that vision. So the mic is yours, Jason, if you want to enlighten us a little bit on these business outcomes that we can be looking at.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm excited because if you haven't heard these before, I mean, you've probably heard each of these individually. But what I'll do is I'm going to try to put them together in a way that like you can really take a look at your own business and decide like if it's a good fit for you. Right. So, but before I talk about the 4 types though, what I want the listener to do is similar to what I did with Dustin in the beginning, which is get really clear on your goals. I mean, like who hasn't heard that before? Right. But what you want to do is though, is just take a moment right now to think about like, well, like what is it? Where would I want to be in 5, 10 years? Do I want to be, how hard do I want to be working? Right. What kind of value do I want to be creating? And for your business, also think about the lifestyle, right? Because like the reason why we named our website cbalifestyle.com is not because lifestyle is actually in the name. It's actually not in the name. What we created though is the reason why I made this business in the first place is I wanted a business that supported my lifestyle rather than my lifestyle supporting my business. Right. And so like think about that first. All right. And how would you want that? Now let's go into the 4 types. So I like to call this like your business endgames, and you can kind of develop this as you go. But there's 4 types, and we're going to start from the least self-managed to the most self-managed. All right. And what self-managed means is that other people are doing the work. At the most self-managed, you just own the thing and it somehow just gives you money. But you're not involved in the day-to-day anymore. Okay. So let's talk for the beginning. The first one is a solopreneur. This is like, and some people actually choose this as their end game as like a boutique solopreneur. And people can be incredibly good at this. They're usually like an artisan, like someone who's just insanely good at what they do that people are willing to pay like millions of dollars just to work with them. I know Tony Robbins doesn't have this setup, but for his own private practice, I remember at one point he was charging $1 million to work with him for 1 hour, and you had to fly to him. He wasn't coming to you. And I was like, just blown away by what that was. But like he could serve one client a year and basically make 7 figures. Isn't that like, that's crazy, right? But he was so good at what he did, and he had the clout, the reputation that he was able to do it, right? So for a solopreneur operation though, usually it's either just you, right? And you wear all the hats in that business, or you might have like a VA or 2 helping out behind the scenes. All right. And they tend to leverage a lot of systems. So I'll give like 1 or 2 pros and cons, or else we'll be here for quite a while. But the one, like my favorite part about a solopreneur though, is you can be incredibly agile. You can change, you can turn at the drop of a hat. You're like, I'm not selling this anymore. I'm selling that. It happened, right? Like you don't have to inform anybody. You've just made the decision, and you can be extremely flexible. And in times like these where the market might change really rapidly, if you have a good head on your shoulders and you're staying focused, you can be very flexible in what you do to make sure your business stays afloat. right? Also, like the overhead is really low. So like you basically it's just your lifestyle costs, right? You don't have a payroll or anything that's like taking up so much of your income, and that's pretty great. The con of that though is that if you were to get sick and you weren't able to work, like for me, like my value is in my brain, right?
Yeah.
And when I got sick this one time, my brain literally slowed down to the point where I thought I was like I went dumb. Like I couldn't think and I couldn't work. So like at that point, I was a solopreneur. I had no income. Like I had to pause clients. I had to push them back until and thankfully, they believed in me and I recovered. I was able to go again. But that was really a difficult time. So for solopreneurs, it's more of you have like a really like a cushy job, so to speak, where like, I don't know how else to describe it. It's like you have a job, but it's better paying and it's more flexible, right?
Yep.
So moving up though, like if you move one step up, you go to zone of genius. And this is a favorite of mine because you get to do what you love and what you're good at, right? And as you build this, like what happens is you start to find other people who do the other parts better than you do. So for example, I brought in my partner because he's actually way more better at the details and follow through of operational systems than I was. And I made that transition to a zone of genius business, not entirely though, because in the beginning it was just the two of us. So like instead of one though, my roles were divided. And I was focused on like half of the things I had to do before. And that already relieved me so much and allowed the business to grow faster. But a true zone of genius business, though, is like really getting an idea of what you're really, really good at and building systems and people around all the other parts. When that happens, you basically don't work another day in your life because you do what you love. You show up, you do the work. Like you like Dustin's incredibly good at facilitating amazing conversations. Once his zone of genius business is built, he's just going to show up, have these calls, and then go home, right? Like and he's going to, I don't know, go to the beach or just relax, sipping Mai Tais on the beach or something like that, right? So zone of genius, like the great part about that is what I just said. You get to do what you like, only what you're good at, what you love to do, and you can design it in a way where you only do that part. Everything else is taken care of. Now, the I guess the con of that is how are you going to get everything else taken care of, right? You'll likely need leadership skills. You'll need to be able to lead a team. You'll need to be able to create systems for what they're going to do so that they can do things as good as you've done. And like Dustin sharing that hiring process, like you have to try to hire people who are better at those aspects than you. How are you going to find them? Right. So those are the cons. Like you can find them, of course, like you keep looking, but like the con of that is the effort that needs to get put in to find those people. You might have to go through several people to really identify who's key and who is a real fit. Because I don't know, like people lie on their resumes sometimes, like who knew, right? So like you got to find out, right? So that's zone of genius.